This is J. Krishnamurti's second public talk in New Delhi, 1962.
We were saying last time that we met here, which was on Sunday, how important it is that there should be a total revolution, not reformation, not the reforming of society, but a complete inward revolution of the mind. We said that a new mind is necessary to meet not only the present crisis, which is always expanding and growing worse, but also a new mind is necessary to discover for ourselves what is true. And if there is a state of creativity beyond time, for that a new mind is necessary. A new mind that is not slave to obedience to authority, that comprehends totally that state of humility in which alone there can be a learning. And as I said last Sunday, is it possible for the individual to break away from society, and it is only in breaking away from society the individual comes into existence? And is it possible for that individual to bring about a new mind? We said that society is the past, and each one of us is the result of the past. He is the result of his environment, of the society he lives in, of the culture in which he has been brought up, the religious propaganda with which he has been inculcated through centuries. He is the result of all that, which is the past. And is it possible to break away from the past totally? The past being not only yesterday, but the many thousand yesterdays. The past, which is the atomic bomb, as well as the tradition of the Hindu, the Christian, the Buddhist, or of the recent religious, social revolutionary, who is the communist. The past is not only the tradition, but also the result of that tradition in conjunction with the present, which creates the future. Because for most of us, tradition is very important. We have to understand tradition. There is the tradition of the weaver. There is the tradition of the scientist. There is the tradition of the scholar. There is the tradition of the so-called religious person. The tradition of the technician. where is one to draw the line between that kind of tradition where technological knowledge is essential to live in this world, and where is it a detriment, a total detriment to a creative mind? I think each one of us should comprehend this problem of tradition. Because tradition is, after all, habit. Habit seasoned in time. And that habit shapes our thought, shapes all our existence, forces you to go to the office, forces you to maintain a family, which evokes responsibility, duty, and habit of morality. And in which is included obedience. All these are, tradition. They compose tradition. They make up tradition. And do I go on? And is tradition, does tradition help to bring about a creative mind? That is the new mind. Or habit prevents the total comprehension of that which is beyond time. There is no good habit and bad habit. All habit is the same. But to free the mind from habit is surely extraordinarily important, because habit is merely a technique, an easy way of living in which not deep thinking is necessary. That's why most of us cultivate habit, which becomes almost automatic, and thereby we needn't exert too much vitality of thought. So we cultivate habit, which gradually, through time, becomes tradition. Now, the whole of that is the past. The past including the ideas, the gods, the various conscious and unconscious influences, the various compulsions and urges, the various accumulations to which we are attached. All that is the past. Not only the accumulated memories of the individual, of the person, but also the accumulated knowledge of humanity, which has been gathered, accumulated through centuries. There is the accumulation in the unconscious, and there is the accumulation in the conscious. The accumulation in the conscious is the present technological education, environmental, social influences of the present. There is also, in the unconscious, the residue of thousands of years of man's endeavor, his knowledge, his hopes, his frustrations, his unexpected demands. All that is the past. The past is you, and there is nothing else but the past. And I think it is very important to understand this. I mean by understanding, not intellectually, not verbally. If you merely assent to what has been said, agree or disagree, and add more in detail to what has been said verbally, intellectually, then you are not understanding. Because anybody can agree with anything, can be dissuaded not to agree. But understanding is something entirely different, surely. Understanding comes into being when you give your whole attention not only to the word, but to the meaning of the word, but also to your reaction to those words, and the reaction which is the response of your memory, which is the past. The whole total process of that brings about an understanding. And these talks are not verbal, are not meant to be merely a series of ideas with which you can play. They are meant for those people who are serious, earnest, who are willing or wishing to go to the very end to find out, to the very end, not to the intellectual barren end of words and theories, but to go to the very end of an idea, of a thought, like the past, and to inquire very deeply into it, and to pursue it to the logically, sanely, rationally, to the very end. Such a person is a serious person who will not be thwarted by any formula. And this evening we are proposing to do that. That is to inquire not only verbally, but also emotionally, to be in contact with the word. You know, there is a difference between mere verbalization and which is not connected with our emotions, with our feelings. There is a division between the idea and the feeling which brings about action. When we divide the idea, separate it from feeling, then there is the contradiction between the feeling and the idea. And most of us spend our time in trying to find out how to bridge between the idea and the action. The idea is merely words. The idea is merely a series of thoughts verbalized. They have no value at all. As you must have observed, every politician throughout the world talks of peace. that is double talk. They talk of peace and prepare for war. They talk of not having position, power, prestige, and they are craving, burning after it. So it is an idea. But we are not dealing with ideas, we are dealing with fact. The fact that action can only come about when there is an emotional contact with the fact. Because I feel that the past can be completely dissolved. And the future, the unknown, is just beyond the wall of the past. But to go beyond, to break through that wall, one has to go very deeply into the question of the past. One cannot go deeply into the whole process of consciousness verbally. One cannot inquire through thought. Thought is not capable of inquiry. Because thought is born of reaction, which is the reaction of memory. Thought is the reaction of memory. And memory is the result of experience. And that experience is the conditioning in which we have been brought up. So thought is not the way to inquire. Thought is not the instrument of questioning, of demanding. So when one realizes that very clearly, sharply, that thought is not the instrument of inquiry, then how is one to inquire? How is one to understand? Please, as I am talking, please listen to find out your own state of mind, the state of your own mind. Do not merely hear the words, but use the words to open the door into your own mind. Because really, what we are doing this evening is the process which opens the door into yourself. We are taking a pilgrimage inwardly. We are taking a journey together into the whole process of the mind. And if you are merely listening to words, then it will have no value. But if you are journeying together, not listening to me, but journeying together, then you will discover for yourself the truth of what is being said, the truth or the falseness of what is being said. And if the intellect is not the instrument of inquiry, and the intellect is not the way that opens the door, then what is the way? I'm using the word the way not as a method, not as a system, a practice, a discipline. Those are all too immature and childish. Doesn't matter who says so. Because a mind that follows a system is a narrow mind, is a limited mind. And a mind that is disciplined, shaped, controlled, ceases to think. So, I am using the word way in the sense, if this is not it, then what is? If thought is not the way to inquire into how to dissolve the past, because thought itself is the past, is the result of the past, and therefore it is incapable of dissolving the past. Then how is the past to be dissolved? I hope I am making myself perfectly clear. The hand that gives cannot at the same time take away. Thought wants to dissolve the past, but yet thought is the result of the past. Every action, every projection, every desire, every volition from the past cannot dissolve it, because it is still of the past. Do what you will, every action, every sacrifice, every movement of the mind is of the past. And thought, do what it will, cannot resolve it. If that is very clear, not merely in agreement, not merely that you agree with what is being said, which is not important at all, but what is important to find out if you can dissolve the past. Because you see, the past can give technique of daily existence. That's the machinery of daily existence the past it can offer. It can facilitate. But it cannot take you very far. And we have to take a journey beyond the past, beyond time. And it is necessary, because that's the only revolution that matters. That's the religious revolution. And such a revolution only can bring about an extraordinary disorder out of this disorder. I'll explain that presently. It is not a contradiction. So, thought under no circumstances offers a way out of the past. Past is necessary. Otherwise you wouldn't know where you live. You wouldn't be able to know what your name is or go to the office, or recognize your wife, your friends, your children, or able to speak. The past is memory. And memory is essential. You cannot put it aside. But the cultivation of memory, which is knowledge, which is the expanse of thought, cannot possibly break down the wall of the past. And therefore the mind is never new, never fresh, never young, innocent. And it is only such a young, fresh, innocent mind that knows humility. Not the mind that is burdened with the past. So how is one to break through the past? There is an act which comes into being with seeing. Please pay little attention to what is being said. Because of its very simplicity, you'll find it difficult to understand. Because our minds are so complicated, so immature, with a lot of information which has no value, so frightened, so insecure, and being insecure, seeking security, and therefore furthering insecurity. And such a mind is incapable of seeing something very simple, and therefore acting very simply. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The act of seeing. Because like listening, which is an extraordinary act, to listen without judgment, without thought, without the word, without interpretation, without condemning or accepting, just to listen, which is an attentive state of mind. To listen to somebody, doesn't matter who it is, whether your child, your husband, wife, your boss, your cook, your bus conductor. To listen completely requires a great deal of attention. Not concentration, just attention. And seeing involves this attention. Seeing and listening involves this attention. That is, there is the past, which nobody can deny. It is there, solid, brutalizing, crippling, destroying. The mind that must be totally alive. That's a fact. Not only an outward fact, but also a psychological fact. Now, to see the fact without any condemnation, without any judgment, but merely see the fact, what the past is. Now let me go into the question of seeing in a different way. For most of us, authority is very important. The authority of the books, the so-called sacred books, the authority of the policeman, the law, the authority of the past, the tradition, the authority as domination of the husband over the wife and the wife over the husband and the parent over the child, the authority that makes you obey, the authority that has created such disorder in this world. For through obedience you do not create order, you bring disorder, as all tyrannies do bring disorder. This again is a fact, both outward and inward fact, that man, you obey. And all your constant demand is to find an assuring, comforting, enduring authority that will give you great, immense satisfaction, which you call peace. Do please listen to this and apply it to yourself. You're not listening to words. You're listening to yourself. You're not listening to ideas. You're observing yourself in the mirror. You may turn your back. You may not look at the mirror, but it's there for you to look if you want. And as you are here, do look at the mirror, at the mirror, which is yourself. So there is authority. The authority that makes you do things. The authority of right conduct. The authority that says you must not and that you must. The authority that destroys all creativity, which is shown in the soldier. He is not allowed to think, he is allowed only to obey. The more he obeys completely, thoroughly, without hesitation, he is the completest soldier. Then, for him, he has no responsibility. His superiors take the responsibility. And that's why war is popular. And that's what most of us want. The authority of the Guru, who tells you what to do. And you don't have to think. You don't have to feel. You don't have to question. You just follow. And so obedience becomes almost second nature. And a nation brought up on obedience is a nation that ceases to be. That's what's happening in this unfortunate country. There is no questioning. You do not break down authority. I do not mean the authority of the government, authority of the law. If you do break that down, if you don't pay taxes, if you don't buy the stamp, if you don't obey law, you'll go to prison. That's very simple. I do not mean to break down that kind of authority. That would be too stupid and silly and immature. But to break down the authority, the psychological authority, the authority that one has built up within oneself, which is to obey. You obey the Guru, obey the tradition, obey what you have been told. to bend your knee to so-called religion, which is propaganda, nothing else but that. We will go into the whole question of religion later. So authority cripples all thought and brings about deterioration. You're never free. There's always fear. And how can a mind which is ridden by authority of every kind, from the little authority to the great authority of the highest guru, the Shankara, the Buddha, the saints, how can such a mind ever find out what is true for itself? Surely youth has find out what is true for itself, not be told by 1,000 teachers what is true. They all may be wrong, probably are. But you have to find out. And to find out, you have to destroy every authority that you have created within yourself. That very denial brings a disorder. Because disorder is really fear. And when you begin to question this inward authority, and so tear down the house that one has built up through centuries, especially in this country, which is in a state of deterioration. And to see this fact of authority and following, to see, not merely intellectually agree or disagree, or to say what would happen if there is no inward authority. Probably if there was no inward authority, you would be disturbed for a few days. But soon you would find out another authority to replace the old. And in the meantime, there is disorder. And you are frightened of that disorder. Surely, sirs, you must tear down everything to create. You must question everything, and also, and in that very questioning, the individual comes into being. Otherwise, we remain the mass. And surely that is what is necessary at the present time, to question everything. To question, not to find out the answer. If you question with a motive, it's no longer questioning. Then you are merely seeking a result. But if you question without motive, which is quite an extraordinary thing to do, then your mind is completely capable of seeing what is true. So, it is important, is it not, that there should be a new mind, a fresh mind. And such a mind is not possible if it is burdened with authority. Authority is not only the authority of the guru, the authority of the book, the authority of the wife and the husband, all the rest of the authority, the will to dominate. But also there is much deeper significance to authority, which is experience. Because most of us live by experience. And experience becomes authority. There is the experience of the scientist who has accumulated for many centuries knowledge, which is authority. And also there is the experience which each one of us has gathered as knowledge. And that becomes our authority, which again is the past. The authority of which the conscious mind is aware, and also the authority, the accumulated experience in the unconscious. So experience, which is the reaction to challenge. I ask you something. The very asking is the challenge which you respond. And the responding is the experiencing. And that experiencing is the result of your previous experiences, which become the authority. Please, it's quite simple. It may sound very complicated, but it's not. All experience is of the past. And any response of experience which is of the past will not break down the wall of the past. So, authority of any kind inward or outward, will not free the mind from the past. And you can never be master of the future, except in mechanical things. Because the future is the unknown. But we look at the future, the tomorrow, with the eyes of the past. And therefore we think we can control it. And we do control it, mechanically. Tomorrow you're going to the office. Tomorrow you're going to have certain results in your activities. Tomorrow you're going to further the bridge, etc. Mechanically you will do all kinds of things. Therefore you think you are master of the future, but you are not. Psychologically you are not master of the future, which is of tomorrow. Because how can you be the master of something which you do not know? How can you be the master of a mind which must be young, fresh, innocent? So, when you see, I'm using that word see in the way I have talked about, seeing, that certain outward forms of authority are necessary, like the authority of the engineer, the doctor, the government, law, the policeman. But every other form of authority is destructive. Because such a mind can never be free. And it's only the free mind that can go beyond. So, we are the result of the past. We are the past. And any projection of the past into the future, except mechanically, except in time, any projection into the future as I shall be this, psychologically, I shall arrive, I shall find the truth, such projections are born of the past and therefore productive of conflict. Now, if you are able to see this totally, that is, as I explained, to see something totally, with your mind, with your heart, with your senses, with your eyes, nose, ears, with all your senses as well as mentally, emotionally, completely, to see something without contradiction, without effort. Then you will find that the past can be broken down completely, not bit by bit, totally, immediately. Because seeing prevents a gap from action. There is no gap between seeing and acting. I hope I am making myself clear. You see, sir, to remove contradiction is very important. To be free of contradiction. Because contradiction breeds conflict. I'm talking inwardly, psychological contradiction. The double talk of the politician. And most of us indulge in that double talk. And if one is really going to the very end of any thought, to introduce contradiction prevents further journey. You're caught in contradiction. So, what we are pointing out is to see something totally without contradiction. So, to see that you are angry, what is involved in that seeing? The fact is you are angry. And to see that fact without denying it, without justifying it, without saying it is right, it is wrong, just to be aware choicelessly of that fact that you are angry. And that very fact that you are angry will bring about an action which is not contradictory. Then you don't pretend or persuade yourself or discipline yourself not to be angry. Because in that very act of seeing, there is no contradiction. And this fact of seeing is very important to understand. Because on that point I'm going to talk all the time. Because that is the only liberating factor. The act of seeing, the act of listening. Then you don't have to do a thing. But to see so completely, you must be attentive. And attention denies contradiction. You can't attend if you are condemning. You can't give your whole attention if you are not trying to be jealous. It's only when you are completely aware that you are jealous or envious, completely, then that fact brings its own energy. And you need tremendous energy to have this attention. And the act of seeing is attention. I am not talking of something mystique, something, a special process, a new way of thinking and all that absurdity. We are moving from fact to fact. And the act of seeing without condemnation, judgment, evaluation, without the word which is thought, to look, to observe every movement, every feeling. You will see if you so pay attention to everything that you see and feel, and if you give your total attention to the problem of authority, then you will find, and out of it comes a new mind, a fresh mind. That fresh mind isn't created by thought, by modern education, by going to the temple, reading the Gita, or the Quran, or the Bible everlastingly. That mind comes into being only through seeing. And to see, you must question desperately. And the very act of seeing is very destructive, because it destroys the society in which you have been brought up. You're no longer concerned with the reformation of that society. You can't reform society. So society is the result of the past. And if you reform it, you're still in the past. But a man who has broken down the past completely, and it is possible, then being alone, he may affect society. That is irrelevant. So, what is important and essential is to see that a new mind is necessary. And a new mind cannot be brought about by the tricks of the mind, which is thought. The new mind can only come into being when there is a questioning of the society in which we have been brought up. And you cannot question if you have a motive. And so seeing authority, seeing obedience, frees the mind from obedience. Because after all, what prevents from seeing is your condemnation, your justification, which is the past. So when you look, when you see, when you listen without condemnation, you're free of the past. You can look. And to so look, you need to have attention. Attention is the concentration, the essence of energy. And that energy only comes into being when you are constantly looking, watching, observing, seeing, questioning. So out of this extraordinary listening and seeing, the mind has lost its mooring, its connection with the past. The mind has its anchor in the past. Mind is the past. But when the mind gives complete attention to seeing, it has broken down the past. And it is only such a fresh, young, innocent mind only can go beyond the limitations which the mind has placed upon itself. It's only then is it possible to discover for oneself as an individual who is no longer part of society, to find out if there is the immeasurable or if there is not the immeasurable.